Okay. I am good on my end. Sorry
Awesome.
about that.
So excited to get started.
Yeah.
So I'm going to deliver you a written report. That means you don't have to take notes unless you really want to.
Okay.
And that allows you to be fully present to absorb the information because it's massive.
Okay.
So what we're doing here is we are literally introducing you to your soul. We are going to talk about your gift, which makes up about 2/3 of your soul blueprint. Then we're going to talk about your soul tribe, which is your planet of origination. Then we're going to
Mhm.
talk about your soul specialty. So those three aspects of yourself make up the pie. It's just about the top 2/3 is the gift. Then there is your soul gender. So those four aspects are who you were when you were created. It's who you will always be. It will never change. So each lifetime, what it's about is becoming more and more of an expert on you so that you can be more empowered, fully express yourself, and live your purpose.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, some lifetimes we just kind of coast through and we don't accomplish very much. Other lifetimes are very consequential, like this one.
Hmm.
Because we're in this time of the great shift, a lot of souls wanted to be here for this because it's an opportunity for massive expansion.
Hmm.
So we're going through this evolutionary up level, we and the earth. And that's why there are so many here, so many light workers here now. So you're really just getting started with your light worker stuff, right?
Here we go. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I believe so.
Yeah. I can tell because when I measure your vibrational frequency, the level that it's at tells me that, yeah, you've got some awakening going on, but you're kind of early into the journey. It's really interesting.
Well, what's been interesting is since I started working with the channel, I didn't realize how many modalities and facets there were to this world. So I'm just trying to absorb as much as I can, see what clicks immediately, see what needs further exploration, discovery. So, and it's that's why it's been great meeting someone like you, that you whom you immediately trust and want to learn from. So I'm excited to do this with you.
Yeah, I think you're going to like it. So, the last thing I'm going to share with you after I go through those aspects that are always the same is your life lesson. So every time you incarnate, you choose a life lesson, and it's more an area of focus because it's like, okay, I've had these experiences, I've got this karma to resolve. For this lifetime, this is what I want to focus on. So it's you get to do with it whatever you want to do with it. It was something you chose, and that will be the last thing we'll talk about. So I'm going to begin with your soul gender. Yours is male. If it had been female, because we do incarnate in male and female, no matter what our soul gender is, because it can be male, female, or androgynous,
Okay.
right? So we can be in a different gender body from our soul. And I emphasize that because right now there are a lot of transgender people around. And although I can't prove it, it's my belief that many of them, the reason they're feeling the way that they are is because they have a different soul gender from their body gender. And in this lifetime, because of what's going on with all the energy shifts, it's just uncomfortable for them. They're really feeling it.
Hmm.
Whereas in past lifetimes, when they have shifted genders, it was no big deal. And I have met people who are the opposite gender. And for a man, for instance, who has a female soul, he might just be more in touch with his feminine side. Not a big deal at all.
Right.
For a woman, I've met a number who've said, oh, yeah, I always thought I had more testosterone. So they're aware of it, they know something, but then to have it confirmed from your reading is really cool.
Hmm.
But even beyond that, I emphasize it because if we as souls can understand this, that there's nothing wrong with these people, they're just, a gender dysmorphia happening for a very good reason. They're perfect souls just as they are. We can put that out there, and for them, if they can understand it, and then finally have some peace about why am I like this? It's incredible. So I'm planting seeds all over the place, teaching people this, hoping they will share with others. And then we might get rid of some of that bigotry that's out
Hmm.
there. So that's my sermon.
Yeah, understood. Hmm.
Now we get into the really juicy stuff. Your gift, it's called the communicator. How's that feel?
Sounds about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It feels right.
No surprise there.
Yeah.
So the communicator is the energy that your soul is made from. When you step into your gift, you're unstoppable. It's a really great gift to have. So as the communicator, you have to use your voice. Big part of who you are. Probably when you were a kid, you were told often that you talk too much because that's very common among communicators. They just talk a lot. They are channels, they're natural channels. So whether you have noticed it or not, you sometimes will speak, and the words that come out of your mouth, you didn't say them, they were channeled in the moment.
No, I 100% believe that. There's a lot of times where you never know where something comes from, especially when I was doing like improvisational work, like notably comedy. You don't know where the punchlines come from. You just know it's a punchline and is appropriate for here, or there's always a musicality to speech too. And you just know when to hit those beats or when to deliver something. So, yeah, I've always felt that. And I also don't shut up. So I'm very aware of that too.
Yeah, it's very common. So for you, speaking, writing, video, or any other means of getting your message out there, for you, it's about standing in your authenticity because you are channeling divine messages. That's pretty heady stuff
Hmm.
when you are essentially speaking for God. So, one of the shadow sides of this gift can be getting a little bit arrogant because it's like, I am channeling God. Why aren't you listening to me? So, that you want to be aware of and don't step in that pile. You
Hmm.
always want to be humble that you are a messenger, you are sharing from divine. And people either accept it or they don't. That's their issue. Your issue is just to share it.
Hmm.
Because I
Well,
have had some communicators who've gone into that. It's not
yeah.
a pretty picture.
Yeah. No, it's always my, I try to make a point when I'm done speaking. I just think it's such a beautiful thing to be able to have someone's attention. I just think most people want to be listened to for the most part. That's in my line of work. It's a lot of times I just have to listen to them.
Mhm.
But also, if we're finishing a show or something, I always make a point to thank everyone for their eyes and ears, their attention, because to invest 1, 2, 3 hours of your time listening to someone or reading a book and paying attention to that author's voice, or that's it, or a CD if you're listening to music, that's a large investment of someone's time that you're occupying their mind space, you know? So I try to be as respectful of that as possible.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Mm,
As long as you stay humble, you're good. Just know that that is one of the shadow sides. So you knowing it is power. That way you avoid it.
mm,
So communication is your medium. You're a spiritual teacher helping other people express their authentic selves. Whether you knew that or not, that's just inherent in your energy because you learn these things and then you share them and you speak with that voice of authority. So because you are standing in your authenticity, you are good at expressing yourself. You actually can help others learn how to do that because other people have different gifts. They don't have your gift. It's not easy for them to just get up and speak the way that you do.
right. I agree. I mean, and I've always felt like that's been a conscious effort, whether it's trying to, like, when you're younger, include other kids into an activity or the joke. Like, everyone wants to be in on the joke.
Yeah.
Or even now, my line of work, if I'm visiting a small business owner who is painfully shy, doesn't want to deal with customers, can't speak publicly, doesn't like cameras. But if they're side by side with me and I do the talking, first I build the rapport beforehand and a friendship so they're okay to come on with me. And then if I'm there, it's completely different. Then it's just conversational and loosey goosey, they're at ease. And I've always looked at it as my main job is to make that person, like either my guest or whoever I'm showcasing, as comfortable as possible. And then what is the viewing experience or like, or what is the experience for those getting, hearing that person's message?
Yeah. So, the prime directive from Creator is to come here, expand your consciousness, have a lot of fun, and do what feeds your soul.
Mm,
You have intuitively stepped into what feeds your soul, which is really beautiful. A lot of people never find it.
mm,
Part of what we do in this reading is helping you to understand what that is, but you've already got it, so we don't have to worry about that part.
mm,
You will thrive on teaching and sharing your message. So, speaking on stage or a classroom, natural and easy for you, just like writing. A lot of communicators end up being copywriters because they're really good at doing these amazing phrases and sentences that are just magnetic. They draw people in. So when it comes to being present on the internet, communicators do it the best because it's so easy for them. They have
Mhm.
that magnetic ability. So it's you're doing it. Living proof.
Hmm. So about the writing aspect, do you find, depending on gender, that people express themselves differently? Where I've heard like female writers uh, are sort of voluminous and it can flow from them, where male writers sort of bash their way from like sentence to sentence, trying to construct something together. Have you ever heard anything like that?
No, and I don't think it would be true for communicators because
Hmm.
they just are gifted at writing. It's
Yeah.
again, you're channeling.
Hmm.
A lot of the time you might think it's coming from you, but it's really it's kind of a combination.
Hmm. I
So if
wonder if
you're
that
allowed,
is right, right. I mean, I guess I've caught myself definitely using like keywords and phrases that I don't use in normal speech, and like, well, I never use that in a sentence. Where is that coming from? Why do I know that it fits here? Or why do I know this should be part of this train of thought? So that's pretty wild too, to think of that.
yeah. So when you're writing, just be in the flow, allow it to come through. I get the same thing when I channel. It's like that's the word you want to use. How interesting. It's not a word I would have used.
Mm,
And that's what channeling is. It's just
yeah,
allowing it to come through you in the moment. The more you do it, the easier it gets. That means that you can consciously turn on the tap of your channel when you want to. So if you were to sit down and write, you could say, okay, ready, let's go. Turn up the volume and then just let it flow.
yeah. And yeah, like I've never believed in something like writer's block. I mean, I do believe in momentum when it comes to, I suppose, channeling or creative output. I'm a big believer in that. But then I think there are little easy exercises someone can do to work through those things too. If you can't think of that next keyword or phrase, or you just start making lists. It could just be your grocery list, but as long as you're doing the exercise of pen to paper or fingers on the keyboard or whatever, then that stuff, the other stuff starts to dissipate and you get back into your rhythm again.
Yeah, I just draw a blank line. If I
Oh
can't
yeah.
get the right word, just put a line and keep going.
Hmm.
Fill it in later.
Yeah, I'm the same way. If I need to title a piece or give a character a name, I never even think of it. I'm always like, well, I'll go back and change it if need be. But let's just give it something now. And oftentimes that's just what I usually stick with.
Yeah.
Try not to overthink.
It's more important to stay in the flow.
Mm,
Yeah. And so you intuitively get that because you're a communicator. The thing about communicators that's really interesting, and you wouldn't be aware of this because it's your normal, but for you, words have substance, texture. They might even have taste, flavor. That's not true for the rest of us. We don't have that relationship with words.
mm. So what I'm asking myself now is, am I talking too much to you now? Like,
No,
is it supposed to be a back and forth, or am I supposed to
it's
be sitting
organic.
tight? Hmm.
It should be
Yeah.
very organic. Yeah. Yeah. If you want to ask a question, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's see where are we at.
And Deborah, you consider yourself, are you a communicator as well?
No,
No?
no,
Wow.
I'm not. This isn't natural to me. I had to really work at it. I would
Finally,
not be
wow.
on camera. When I started, I would not be on camera
You seem extremely comfortable doing this and teaching.
because of the work. The work brought that out. I'm an introvert. I would
Hmm.
be happy being a hermit sitting on top of my mountain, hanging out with my horses, doing nothing. But the thing is, for all of our gifts, we have to find balance. So if I did that, I'm doing all the research and studying and gathering. If then I don't turn and share it with somebody, I'm not a balance and it's not as fulfilling. So you have to get over that introvert side to share it. So I can turn it on and off now, but
Hmm.
it took a while.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah. So you see, you get all that naturally, and you might just think, well, everybody's that way, but they're really not. They're wired differently.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. There are 8 different gifts. And some of them are more extrovert, many of them are introvert, which is really interesting.
Hmm. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are certain types of people that I'm fascinated by. Folks who can work with their hands, artists, people who can, or someone who can think of a sound pattern or an image and then have it go from mind to fingertips. That always blows me away because that's something I absolutely can't do.
Well, you might if you were into doing that, because think about Beethoven. He had to have been channeling. How do you write that kind of music when you're deaf?
Hmm.
Doesn't happen. He was
Yeah.
channeling. He probably wasn't aware that's what he was doing because it was just very natural, like breathing to him. For the communicator, that's the way it is. It
Hmm.
just flows.
Hmm.
And the more you relax and let it flow, the more profound what comes will be. Can you feel that?
There are definitely well, I always think time and space are a huge part of the creative process. Sometimes you just need to let things marinate or percolate,
Mhm.
or you just need to be still for a long time um, to get back into tap back into that energy again.
Yeah. One of the things about the communicator that's also different from the other gifts is that you constantly have these ideas popping into your head, inspired ideas, creativity. It's just, it doesn't stop. It's like bees buzzing in your brain. Are you conscious of that?
Yeah, and that was something I worked at as well. There's always that, and then certain ideas strike a deeper chord. Um, Yeah, but there's always pen and paper nearby, or I can run somewhere my phone for my notes if there's something really quick because I don't want to lose that thought. So yeah, I've always documented things like that just in case. You never know.
And that's important. It's good that you're doing that because you are channeling divine words and you don't want to lose them.
Hmm.
So, like, I wrote my first book, half of it in the car. The stuff would just flow while I was driving because, you're in that open receiving state. So I
Yeah.
had my phone handy. I would just hit record and, captured it that way. For you, that's even compounded. You get that even more. So, yeah,
Mhm.
having your phone handy, being able to capture it. Because the thing is, those divine words that come through in that inspired moment don't last long. They're like dreams, they're come and go.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, I've always felt that way. So
Yeah.
I try. Yep. It's
But the
interesting.
buzzing bees thing, that is something, as I said, that's unique to your gift. And you are a sovereign soul. So you have the right to say, could you pause for a minute and let me have some peace?
Hmm.
And then start it again when you're ready. You don't have to be victimized by your gift ever. See, the rest of us don't have that stuff. We'll get stuff coming in occasionally, but it's not a constant barrage of thoughts and ideas. So to me, I wouldn't like that. If you like it, it's great. But I just want you to know that you have the authority to ask for it to slow down, to give you a little bit of peace. It feels to me like you've already organically done that.
Yeah, I never really feel overwhelmed by thoughts or overthinking a matter. Sometimes it's frustrating because you're always trying to think, it's always the skywriting corollary where you just wish if you had a message to get out, it would be somewhere where you knew everyone could at least see it. And trying to communicate in such a fractured society and media today is difficult to try to do that. But so that's always been a big that's the puzzle I'm trying to solve. And even now, how do I go from this familial community hyper local audience to this newfound perhaps international audience, and how can you marry those two together? So that's where my mind seems to go naturally, as you try to sometimes you come up with a thought and it's like this would work for the entire community, and there are some things you come up like this is only going to work for this a singular event or a singular person. So it's odd how it comes in and out like that.
Well, I think if you just relax, don't stress about it, you'll do it naturally.
Hmm.
I mean, you already are. You have an international audience.
Hmm. It's fun.
They're
It's
there for a reason. They like what
right.
they hear. So you don't have to be anybody other than who you are. Being your authentic self, that's your golden ticket.
And I think another key thing too, it's not being afraid to, for lack of a better word, fail. So I always tell people, like, if you know, if you come up with an idea, just run with the idea. It might not be the right idea, but don't beat yourself up over it. Give it a shot. It's like throwing spaghetti against the wall. You know, you're not. Sometimes you don't know what sticks, and it's even like if you asked me a couple of years ago, would I think I would be doing this with the kind of people I'm doing this with on this outlet? I never would have believed it, and here we are. You know, and I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, because it's perfect for you
Mm,
and it can expand greatly. It's just a matter of don't block it. Just go with the flow.
mm,
I don't think you have to be a different person for each audience. Always being you is the perfect answer. And because you're channeling, the right words will come for whoever is listening, because that's part of it. Now, the caveat to that is that when you are just getting those downloads that come, it comes in a raw format. So you do need to edit it. Now, when it's live, of course, you're not. It's just going to flow. But if you were writing it, for instance, or making a video that's scripted, you would edit it. You run it through this filter that you have to craft those words. That's where the copywriting side of you comes in. So you craft it into the most beautiful, perfect message that will impact people.
And that makes sense. Like I've always enjoyed the editing process more than say the writing process or the filming process, or you know, that's where the real fun comes in, where you can shape it into what you know, the way it needs to be shaped.
And that's your art.
Hmm.
See, that's where the artistic side of you comes in, because you take that raw material and you craft it into something beautiful
Hmm.
that has an impact on people.
I'm enjoying this, Deborah.
Really cool. It's the most amazing thing, meeting your soul,
Hmm.
because all of these things that you always knew in a vague way, now you're going to know them in a crystal clear way so that you can use them consciously and purposefully.
Hmm.
That's when you really get empowered. And by the way, you never get this done. It's always about leveling up, right? Your entire life and the next
Right.
life and the next, getting better and better. So, what I'm sharing with you today, you'll absorb some of it, you won't get it all. So, I would say, put the report away after you've absorbed it, get it out again in a few months, look at it again, and see what you missed. Because you're going to keep layering it in, getting better and better as you go.
Okay.
But if you instead just put it away and forget about it, then you lose the opportunity. A lot of people do, it's a choice. But if you're really interested in your personal development, your spiritual development, you want to periodically review it. You also want to kind of take the step back and look at the big picture. Okay, where am I using my gift? Am I doing it the way I want to? Or is there something else I can do with it? So when you come at your life with that perspective, all the doors of possibilities open for you.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it'll be there. It'll be in the back of your mind. You're not the kind who's just going to forget it, because this is your golden ticket, as I say. So the better you get at being Kory, the more successful and happier you will be.
Frightening thought, right there.
Oh, it's exciting.
Yeah, teasing. Yeah.
Yeah. So where are we? Now, one of the things about this gift, another of the shadow sides, because you're speaking, right? When we share our gift, whatever it is, there's an energetic feedback loop that happens. So right now I'm doing that with you. I'm sharing with you. So this energetic feedback loop is happening. When you respond, you validate, express how you're feeling. That feeds my soul. That's the energetic feedback loop. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Hmm. Yes.
So the same thing for you. You need to be heard. You're the communicator. So if you're trying to work with somebody and they're shutting you down, they're not listening, that can trigger you. It can get really frustrating. You can shut down, you can withdraw. Sometimes, if it's really severe, a communicator will turn to a lot of journaling and navel gazing. So instead of outwardly sharing their gift, they're just doing it all for themselves inward, unbalanced, not a good place to be. So if you ever find that happening for you, be conscious of it. Take steps to do some more outward action to get the energy flowing again.
Hmm.
Because when you take action, the energy flows, then the angels can come in, opening doors, throwing breadcrumbs. When you're shut down, you're not seeing it. It's all going on. They don't stop, but you're not seeing it because you're hunkered down.
Hmm. All right.
Does that make sense? If you
It does.
experienced that?
No, it does make sense. Yeah. Yeah. So it's also another a trickier layer to that too is um, conversations you have in private and the conversations you know that are in a public forum, and trying to balance that as well. I mean, there's just, there's decorum and tact, and you have to, sometimes you have to express yourselves in different ways if in front of an audience. I mean, that's the big difference between public and private.
Yeah.
And I think I'm pretty good at that. I think I know other people who have a real hard time either having that filter in place or not being able to read the room, right?
Well, there's one gift called the truth teller.
Hmm.
They can shift into a kind of an arrogance where what I was telling you about the communicator, I'm sharing with you God's words. What is the matter with you? You should shut up and listen to me. And when they get into that dark side of their gift, they're like what I call prickly people who nobody wants to be around them. They're difficult.
Hmm. Makes sense.
Yeah. So when you run into somebody who has trouble censoring themselves like that, they might be a truth teller. And they just feel like, I'm speaking God's words. I don't have to make it pretty.
Right.
What they don't get is then nobody wants to listen to you. So for them, a big part of their journey is learning how to take those words and just soften them a little bit
Soften the landing,
so
right.
they can be heard. That's what they need, is to be heard.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
well said.
so, okay, here's the next piece. Now, because you are always channeling divine, I mean, practically, I would say like 75% of what comes out of you is divine channeling.
Hmm.
And some of it's mixed in Kory, but there's a lot of it that's divine. So when that happens, it's like, why do you need other people's teaching? So let's say you were a teacher, because, well, you are a teacher, but you were teaching in a school and you had to follow their curriculum. It would make you crazy because what they're sharing is just not divine. It's not great self expression. It's so misaligned with what you know to be true.
All right, Deborah. So I can tell you it's a phrase or a sentence I heard years ago. You know how you just have those moments where you can elucidate a thought,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then, but someone actually does it for you. And I think there's a term for that. But to me, it's always like you can't teach a natural how. Whether that's in any realm. Like if someone is naturally like a God-given ability or is just very natural in this way and expresses herself or himself in a certain way, that you can't go and you don't learn that, or someone can't tell you how to do that. For some reason, that's always stuck in my mind. Like no one's going to teach me how to be me, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I just wanted you to understand it because if you've ever tried teaching somebody else's work and it felt uncomfortable, that's the reason.
Right.
So for some communicators, like let's say you're a coach and you're learning from all these other coaches how to be the best coach. But then at some point you're like, what the hell am I asking them for? I got the best source in the world. I don't need them.
Hmm.
Right.
And
So,
then it's just a matter, right, of just honing and harnessing what you have.
well, yeah, I mean, you got to learn the basics. You have to understand those things. So you get that. But at some point, what they're teaching you is not helpful because it's contrary to the way you're wired to function.
Hmm.
So then studying their work becomes counterproductive. It's not helpful. So it's just an important thing to know if you have tried studying other people's materials and it just it grates and doesn't feel comfortable, like a suit made out of sandpaper, right? You're not going to wear that. So it's okay because you are getting the true divine goods. And the interesting thing about this is that two communicators can be getting very different messages because you are a unique soul. There's no other like you. You're going to get different information than somebody else, even if they are a communicator.
I see.
And the way you express it will be different because of your unique filter. And yet they're both right
Right.
because different people need to hear things in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
That's why for you, being Kory is always the best thing you can do.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I don't know another way to be, but right. No,
Well, but some people try to be.
yeah,
It's like, I'm not
yes.
good enough, so I've got to be you. And no, it doesn't work. You're wired differently.
Mm.
So let's see. I think we covered most of this. Yeah. So just the last sentence I want to leave you with respect to your gift, channeling is your golden ticket. It feeds your soul. It brings you success and recognition.
Mm.
You get to decide how and when. So any questions about your gift?
Um, I think it just always comes down to, am I using it appropriately? You know, am I on the right track? It's always,
If
um,
you feel good, you're on the right track. That's the way you measure it, right? It's about what makes you feel good, what feeds your soul. It- I'm sorry. As long as you're doing that, you're good. You don't want to get into that place of self-judgment and criticism that I'm not good enough.
mm.
You're always good enough. Creator says you're perfect. How does it get better than that?
You know, it's funny when I started my business, not knowing really what we were, what what it was going to be, right? I mean, it was as free forming as an amoeba, trying to figure things out, and you know, we were called like the bridge essentially, and we were helping small businesses and networking and consulting and doing lots of community events and still trying to feel the walls and what we are. And then it turned out that I became the bridge where people were consulting with me, or if they needed a connection to the local animal shelter or the food pantry or the head of this business, then I was the one they were going through. This still happens now, multiple times a day, every day. And then it was like, oh well, so this is what I am, and this is what I do. It was pretty awesome when you start to figure things out like that.
Yeah. And as long as it makes you happy, it's fabulous.
Yeah, it's really weird to because you never really think of yourself as an expert in any area, right? And then there's what the is at the tipping point. Would you do something 10,000 times and then suddenly you're an expert on that? But then you notice the way people talk to you or approach you, that you can help.
Yeah.
You know, it's a pretty powerful thing.
Well, some of that comes with age too, because you get to this place where you just know what you know, and it's
Yeah.
good enough.
Yeah, they used to torture me when I was young, was knowing that I knowing that I lacked wisdom. That it would drive me crazy. Like this isn't how I'm going to be thinking 10, 20, 30 years from now. I know I'm making mistakes now. I can't correct it. And I also just can't enjoy the ride, you know? And then you don't realize, um, it's like your career path. I never thought of a career path. I was just me. I figured somehow I'm going to make a living out of being myself. Am I just a professional? The dream was to be a professional friend. I wanted a business card that said that 30 years ago, and then you don't realize all these little, you think they're missteps or stumbles along the way are really your journey and your resume that you're building up. And then there you are.
And there's no mistakes. It's learning opportunities.
Hmm. Yeah.
You got to learn. We all have to go through that.
Yeah. Oh, and or making yourself uncomfortable in order to, you need friction in order to move forward or to go. And so I made a couple decisions in my life. There were certain points where, like I'm not a city person. I could never have a boss. I couldn't, I mean, the thought of that would drive me nuts. I hate things like traffic. So there came a certain point in my life where I was like, you know what? I'm going to turn things upside down. I moved to Los Angeles, worked for a big corporation, you know, and then had to sit in traffic every day and think about things. It taught me a lot, including what I didn't want to do with my life, but it also was a super important period in my life of growth,
Yeah.
personal and professional. Yeah.
You need the contrast to decide what you like.
Yeah. And self motivation is a difficult thing, you know, but I'm glad I did that.
Yes.
Then you always wonder, is there another big shift coming soon? Am I getting too comfortable in this role, or is it suit me perfectly, or is it time for a different change,
Well, if you're not ever challenged, then yeah, you probably need to step out of your comfort zone a little bit,
Mm,
right? To grow.
mm,
But I think when you focus on who you are as a channel, and if you ever get bored or feel like you're not stretching, just ask them. They'll give it to you.
hmm.
You've got everything you need with your connection to divine.
I did this fun thing the other night, Deborah, online. It's I asked folks if the YouTube channel could have a theme song. What genre of music do you think
Oh,
would befit the channel? Because what I think or what I like wouldn't necessarily be what the viewer thinks. I always like how, the out and outside set of eyes or ears, how people view you. It doesn't bother. I mean, I find it fascinating, and it was just interesting to see what they would think um, would be sort of like a theme for the show. And it was always like it all just came down to like quirky and fun, um, things that you wouldn't think of. Like if I had to come up with my own theme song, it would be probably the genre of music that I listen to the most, and not necessarily a quirky, fun thing. So it was cool getting people's feedback like that.
76 trombones.
Really?
Mhm.
That's
Yeah, because it's fun, it's upbeat, but then it also has those lulls where it goes into just smooth, right?
hmm,
So it's got both. It's that energy. That's what you bring.
hmm. Yeah, I think that's a fun little. I think it's a fun little exercise.
Yeah. So what did they say?
Anything from like the Cheers theme to the Addams Family, but it was all like a quirky, fun kind of. If you think of like an upbeat, that was a word that came out often too. But like music, like like the Violent Femmes, like Blister in the Sun. You know that song? Dun, 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 dun.
No.
I'm gonna send you the track after.
Okay.
It's American rock music, but it is like it's quirky and funny stuff too. So it was just cool that they see the humor and the upbeat part of the show, the levity. I think that's all really important in musicality as well. So, but I mean, it's not that I love hearing about myself. It's other people's perception of what brings enjoyment to them. I find really cool to learn about.
Yeah. So you can make use of those little quizzes in your live chat
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Honestly, it's how when I started the channel, it was all because I didn't know really anything about the YouTube phenomena or like the live chat phenomena. I
Yeah.
always enjoyed chat rooms like on Yahoo 20, 30 years ago. And I like that. But I would ask them, like, well, when should we be on? When should we be doing shows for how long? And they all said weeknights, prime time. I didn't realize like the audience were people who cut the cord from cable and this was their new TV, but they're interacting with a Johnny Carson
Yeah.
or, I didn't realize any of that. I never would have guessed that our demographic it's 95% women over 60. Like I never would have thought that. And here we are. So
Yeah. Retired women who've got the time.
yeah,
And
and
that's,
are usually really invested in community. Obviously your
yes.
mothers, and they volunteer and they're very active and they talk. So yeah, that's pretty much right down my alley.
Yeah. If you visit some of the other psychic channels, you will see the same moderators showing up,
Mm,
multiple channels. How are they doing that? Don't they have
yeah,
a life?
I
But
know.
this is their community in these chats, and they love that they're recognized.
Yeah, it's a cool little responsibility. It's almost like the editor of a small local newspaper, the role they had in just facilitating things. But once you find that little niche audience and you have your little band that travels with you all the time, it becomes very familial. you know, they stick up for each other in there. It's cool seeing the friendships that have grown, real like online to offline friendships that have happened because of it.
Yeah, it's a whole new world.
Yeah, you always hear about the negatives with social media and that sort of thing, but there are so many positives that no one really considers.
Yeah,
That's a big one.
yeah. So it's funny you were talking about how you don't like traffic and you don't like the city because the planet that you come from is a very rural planet.
Mm,
It's very spread out.
Huh.
So you're used to having more space. So
Interesting.
your planet is called Sirius, like Sirius Black from Harry Potter. Sirius, and that's a star. So Syrians are all about improving things. In fact, if they had a slogan as a people, it would be, let's find a better way. So
Hmm.
they're always looking to take it up another level.
Huh.
That makes sense?
Yeah, it does. It does.
So they are inspired by existing structures and systems. They might not be the one who invents the wheel, but they're going to make it smoother, better, more efficient. That's
Hmm.
how their eye works. So, because they don't create from scratch usually, a lot of Syrians don't feel that they're creative people, but they actually are very creative. It's just in a slightly different way. And what happened with Syrians, they had this big tragedy way, way back in their history. They invented implant technology. So, first of all, let's just pause to absorb that. So, way, way back in their history, they were so advanced, they were inventing implant technology.
Hmm.
So, you came from that. And then you end up on Earth where we haven't even approached that yet. Or maybe we're just now getting there. And lots of lifetimes in between.
Hmm.
So they invented this implant technology because they were looking to heighten the intuitive telepathic abilities of people. They wanted to use it for a good purpose. But then this other soul group from another planet came in who would, we can call them draconians. That, I think that gives you the idea. They're the dark ones. They stole the technology to use it for controlling people, which
Hmm.
devastated the Syrians because they had these pure hearts. They wanted to do good in the world, and something they created is now being used to harm people at a deep level.
Hmm.
So that's why they stopped being creative. They can make it better, but they're kind of afraid of that power of what might happen. And
Jeez.
that's lasting.
Deborah, that is exactly what happened with the internet. Right. When the internet was first built, it was like the Wild West, which was
Yeah.
free, and there were groups of programmers and coders putting these things together to empower people. And then, but it was obvious like once it got into the wrong hands, where it's going to be for either capitalistic things or nefarious things, like that's what happened to it. And there are fewer and fewer white hats, but there are white hats out there still, you know?
Yeah. So it's still worth keeping up the good fight. But
Mm-hmm.
so that tragedy is kind of interwoven into your soul at a deep level. Now, you can overcome it over time, but it's there and it's kind of holding the Syrians back because they're just a little bit afraid. Now, the really wonderful thing is, remember, I told you earlier that we are in a time now on Earth where it's great expansion. So, this is an opportunity for the Syrians to overcome that in this time of expansion. So, just keep that in your back pocket and think about how you might use it. They're very organized people. They love systems, planning, lists, detailed calendars. I've seen your calendars on your wall,
Yeah.
mind mapping, spreadsheets, all of those things, structure. They like structure. It's comfortable.
Yeah, I went for a long time. When I was a child, I was very structured and organized. Then I let it go, and then I've really worked at bringing that back because you have to have something. Like I have to have. I have a list in front of me now. I've got my daily planner, my weekly planner, my monthly planner. There's always things around me just to remind me to stay on those things. And then the big hump to get over was one, realizing the list never goes away. There's always a list. You're always, so that's fine. You got to be cool with that. And then if there's that one thing that just weighs on you mentally that you just can't get over, that's the thing you have to prioritize and get out of the way.
Yeah.
And then the 400 pound gorilla is off your back.
Yeah. See, being a Syrian, you have that attitude. I have a different attitude.
Yeah,
Take it and say, this is what I've learned from the work I've done. I would take it and say, isn't it really true that I have to do that thing that I'm procrastinating about? And sometimes it's really not true. And that's why I'm procrastinating.
that's a
So
great
I can
point.
let it go.
That's a great point. Yeah, because that's another thing I've learned too along the way is I'll feel it's even with my clientele now. So I've been putting a lot of energy from face-to-face contact with them, running around, putting together events and collaborative stuff to, okay, I want to try to build this channel I have to do it a certain way now to just play along with the algorithm and get to know the behavior of the room. And but it's for them and me as well, obviously. But I think this is the next phase of people that we can reach and help the community and et cetera, et cetera. But the whole time I feel like I'm neglecting the clientele because if you're not in front of someone's face, right? It's like when you can say we're still friends, but if you haven't, it's until you're back in person with one another, when it all comes back and you huddle up and you're back at home base again. Um, so I always feel like I'm either neglecting them or they're going to forget about it. And the truth is, when I do see them in person, they're like, no, 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 we get what you're doing. You go and do it. We know you're helping us. It's fine. Take all the time you need. We're here. We're going to be here when you're ready to be with us again. That's mind blowing to be able to have that trust from folks and that responsibility. And that's where I welcome that responsibility. I don't want to lose that. When I look at a certain number of YouTube followers, whatever it means, I mean, I think the actual number is like 10% of what YouTube shows you, which is just like any other social platform. I get it. But you have now, let's say 50, 100, 200 new friends. You don't want to just not let your friends down, but you want to be a friend to them. So I love that sort of a thing. That's what fuels me. Is I think it's hilarious that you and I can shoot the breeze and laugh off the air, or that old guy is sending me T-shirts. Here's this retired guy out in Colorado who's just sending me T-shirts and funny stuff, and my moderators are retired lady in Roanoke, Virginia, who is sending me Cadbury eggs every week. Like, I just think it's such an awesome thing to be a part of.
It is, and they're connected to you. But here's the thing: it's really not true that you have to do all that stressing and working overtime to keep the connection. They told you that. No, we know what you're doing. And they also know that you are their connector. So they're not going to let go of you. That's value. As you grow your tribe, it's going to get to the point where it's so large, you can't have as much of that personal interaction. And the people understand that. Mm-hmm. They know if you have thousands of followers, they're lucky if you just acknowledge them when you're in chat. You can't do it all. So you'll make yourself nuts if you try to do that.
Yep, that's been a struggle from time to time.
Because every week I send out my newsletter, and I do it kind of like somebody's Christmas message. I'm always catching them up with what's going on in a very personal way. So sometimes they'll write to me. Sometimes I don't write back because I just don't have the time. Mm-hmm. How do you make videos, write stories, do readings, all the stuff? You can't, and have a life. Right. So it's okay. Give yourself a break. Right? You will break if you don't give yourself a break. There's only so much you can do, and they understand it. That's the beautiful thing. The ones who don't, you don't want them in your community anyway.
Yeah, you're right. I think there are folks who use me or my service strictly as like an advertising thing, and they don't understand that that's not how this works.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is nice to be reassured every now and then.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're doing great. You just, cut yourself some slack there because you're doing fine with that. So let's see what else. Oh, so Syrians love the process of the hierarchy, the structure so much that they can get stuck paralysis analysis, not getting things done, spinning the wheels. When that happens, the energy shuts down. And in fact, it creates dissonance, which is like sparks, right? And those sparks can cause some pretty nasty effects, like your car can break down, your refrigerator can die. That's energetic sparks. So when you're in that space and it feels yucky, you want to look around, find some action to take and go do it ASAP, because that gets the energy flowing again and it stops the sparks. Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
And that's Absolutely. Not just woo-woo. I mean, that's quantum physics.
Right.
So that's what's going on. And for you, you've got that specific challenge where you can get stuck in that analysis paralysis. So anytime you notice it, as soon as you notice it, take action immediately to stop it in its tracks. That will serve you so well, because it's an old pattern. You've had it for many, many lifetimes. And now is your opportunity to transcend it.
Interesting. Yep. Yep. I can even tell you a couple specific exercises I work on now. If I get a phone call, I don't let it go to voicemail. If I get an email, I try to answer it immediately. If I get a message on another outlet, try to answer that stuff. Because if I let that stuff sit and linger, if I can get to that later on tonight, that's the stuff that builds up and bothers me. So it's an effort. We're all a work in progress.
One of the tests that you can use is when you have all that stuff to do and you're trying to figure out what is the greatest priority, take a step back and ask yourself, if I knew I was going to die in a month, what would be important for me to accomplish? What is the legacy I want to leave behind? That's your priorities. It puts things into real terms when you think about it from that perspective.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's heavy.
Yeah, not in a bad way though, because
Right.
when you're stuck in that analysis paralysis, it can be your life preserver. And you can clear the desk and say, okay, these are the things that I want to be sure I do.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything else will fall in place behind it wherever it fits.
Hmm.
It's kind of like that snap out of it moment.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay, we're almost done with your soul tribe. So another aspect of Syrians is that they make great consultants and coaches, but they have to very carefully select their clients because if you start working with somebody who doesn't follow your guidance and doesn't really appreciate you, it's going to drive you nuts. You
You
don't
don't
want
say.
those kind of people. Yeah. So you want to selectively work with the people who really are interested and want what you have to share. That will be satisfying on both sides.
Hmm. Yep. And that's normally how things work with me too. It's a
Yeah.
nice natural fit.
Yeah. Because, it's like those people who start a business and they're so hungry for clients, they take anybody and then they end up spending all their time with the ones who aren't a good fit, who drive them crazy,
Yeah.
which keeps them from working with the good ones who are coming.
Did you ever watch Mystery Science Theater?
Yeah.
Remember Joel Hansen found that, and his line was always, "I don't want everybody to get this. I want the right people to get this." That's another line that I've just heard along the way that has
Mhm.
always struck a chord with me too.
Yeah. That's some divine wisdom there
Mm,
because you're not for everybody.
right.
And that's why there are all these different gifts because we can speak from the different perspectives and voices so that there's a voice for everybody. All the needs will be met.
Mm,
It's puzzle pieces and we fit together. So you, Kory, have a spot on the grand tapestry of life. Nobody else can fill that spot but you. So if you're not out there living your purpose, being more fully you, that spot's empty.
mm.
Pretty amazing, right?
It's very cool. Yeah. Yeah. I'm enjoying this.
So I think we got that part. Yeah. So, when you find those people, you just get disentangle as quickly as possible because they're not serving your purpose.
Mm.
So that's the end of your tribe. And now we have your soul specialization. So do you have any questions up to this point?
No, 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 I'm with you.
Okay. This is another mind bender. Your soul specialization is called elder council member.
All
Pretty
right.
big sounding, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And it is. Because here's the thing, it's rare. It doesn't show up that often. I looked the other day to see how many people I've done readings for who are elder council members. It's less than 50.
Oh, wow.
It's a very small group. It's rare. So they, as an elder council member, you have your soul purpose, which everybody does. And that's number one. But on top of that, you have your duties as an elder council member. You will feel a responsibility to do something and you might not know what it is. Do you feel like hands pushing on your shoulders? It's like there's something you got to do.
It always feels like there's either another level to achieve or a higher purpose, and I don't know what that is yet.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm one too. So I understand this one really well. So it's like, okay, yeah, I get it. There's something to do, but what the hell is it?
Mm.
Right. So you are here on assignment from your planet, Sirius. You are data gathering, collecting information that you then share with your planet, with your people. Some people are here on an assignment from the Divine Feminine. Some people come with an assignment from the Galactic Unification Council. There's all these big things going on that we're not even aware of. So now, in a conscious level, how do you do that? You don't have to worry about it. It will flow when it's ready to flow. You're probably already doing it along the way. It's just not at a conscious level.
Interesting.
Yeah. But the important part about this is just understanding that's where that feeling comes from. It's like there's always more you've got to do. And it's important to keep it in balance so that it doesn't knock you out of the place of living your soul purpose, living your joyful life, because fun and joy are super important for everybody. But for the elder council member, the joy can get pushed out with the responsibility. So you want to bring that back into balance.
Okay.
So here you are, trying to balance those things. So at some point, in a few months probably, I'm going to call a meeting together of all the people who I've read for who are elder council members so that we can cross-pollinate.
Really?
And learn more about it, because we are rare. It's not like there's other people you can talk to about this. So I've been doing it with the gifts. In fact, I just had the communicators gathering last month. So if you like, I can send you the replay if you want to hear what other communicators say about their gifts.
Yeah, that'd be fabulous.
Okay, cool. I'll send it to you. So I've been working my way slowly through them, and there's 8 of them, so it takes a while. So when I get through the gifts, then I want to do the elder council members, because that one deserves its own group to, as I say, cross-pollinate. Probably won't be a lot of people show up, but whoever is there will offer their perspective, and everybody benefits from that. So just know that even though you are an elder council member, it's still about living your original soul purpose. And then however you decide, wherever you decide to add in the elder council responsibilities, you do that. It doesn't ever override. It's in addition to. But you are a sovereign soul, so you get to decide how much or when you do it.
So, Deborah, is this like kindred spirits?
Only in the respect that you have an understanding, because you're the same. You have that same aspect. But here's the thing. So we have, you and I, a soul specialization that's the same, but our gift and our planet are different. So we're all still going to be different, but there's that one aspect that's the same. Even though we might express it differently because of the other, you see, they all inform upon each other.
Right. Okay.
But there would be enough of a common thread that it's worth talking, which you'll see when you watch the communicator gathering. Okay. Because they all have different aspects. They share the gift. They don't necessarily share the other aspects. And yet you can see the common thread, and they can recognize it and talk about it. And it just helps, because it's taking it beyond the basic information that we have here into individual expression. Gotcha. So it can be very inspiring when you see how somebody else is using the gift. Maybe you see something in them that it's like, oh, now I know what I need to watch out for, because you can see maybe they're on the dark side.
Yeah, it's always fascinating. Or just whenever you bump into someone who sort of thinks the same way you do, or has the same, when you know when someone's on a similar path, that's always awesome to bump into somebody like that. So I'll be looking forward to those conversations.
Yeah. Yeah. And that particular group, just because they are so verbal and communicative, that one actually gelled more than any of the ones I've done before. So at some point, I think we might do another one just to see if we can get a few more people engaged and see where it goes. And I'm encouraging them, hey, if you guys want to stay connected, take the action, stay connected, set up a Zoom meeting, keep the dialogue going. You can support one another. So there's a little bit of interest that might actually happen at some point.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So that's everything that is permanent part of you. Remember we talked about how it's in your blueprint, it never changes.
Yes.
It just gets better. I mean, it changes from that respect. It does get better. So that brings us to your life lesson, which will change every lifetime. So for this lifetime, you chose giving.
Hmm.
How does that feel?
I suppose it feels about right. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's what I'm doing is trying to either give what I have to help someone else get to where they want to be, or bring folks together. Um, whether it's sharing messages or, um, so I believe in distractions a lot too, can be helpful for folks sometimes as well. But it's also it's to me it's I would never say it's like giving gifts, but giving it's time. I think is such a big that's a big thing, and it's giving time and devoting time to help. So that sort of look like that's what I do for a living. You know, I mean, it's the two full-time jobs, they serve that purpose. Even this, you know, how we met through YouTube, like it's really just a third part. Like that's what I do at night when I'm not doing the other two jobs. Um, and it's kind of what I want to be doing. It's what I need to do.
Yeah. So looking from the outside in,
Hmm.
you embody giving. But my question is, are you giving to yourself?
I don't know. Well, I feel like I think I'm extremely blessed with the position I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, things could be so much worse in so many facets of my life, and it's not like it's been a sweet life, you know, and I don't know if that's going to change. I mean, there's going to be things you have to deal with as I age, but um, things are great professionally. I'm very happy, you know. My personally, things are good. To me, the bummer has always been I devote so much time to these other things that I've probably physically suffered. Where like I used to be athletic and in shape, like those days are over, and to try to make myself try to get back on that horse, because you always feel better after a workout or some physical activity, and I'm just so sedentary with this life, that's been tough. The physical toll. It's not like I'm not in like pain. There's nothing chronic. It's just like you're doing this for 16 hours sometimes a day, and you do that day after day, year after year, and you're not the same. You're not shaped the same as you once were. So that's always been the thing: is what if I could do all of this stuff? Oh, and eat right and exercise, or for lack of a better term. It's tough.
Yeah. So looking at your lifespan, understanding you get this one body for this
Mm-hmm.
lifetime. You have to take care of it if you want to have a long lifetime, right? And you're not in pain yet. So self care is really missing for you. And with the life lesson, it's often about giving it to yourself, whatever it is. Yours just happens to be giving, as well as giving to other people. But self has to be in there. Self care is so important.
Mm.
So this is kind of a wake up call for you while you're at this point. You're kind of at a pinnacle. You're a rising star here, right? So do you incorporate the self-care so that you can go the distance? Only you can decide.
Right.
You choose you.
Right.
And it
And
doesn't have to be going back to the level you used to do it. It can be different.
yeah, but it has to happen.
That's the imbalance in your life.
Yes, definitely, Deborah. Yep. Hmm. Okay, jotting things down.
Well, you'll have the tape
Yeah, yeah.
and the report. Yeah. So that's it. That's the end.
I thank you so much for doing that for me. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
you're welcome. It's fun.
Yeah.
This is
So
what
what? So when
oh,
you're doing this, so what are you doing to? How are you putting these reports together?
I go into the Akashic Records.
Hmm.
I use my pendulum. I've got a list of questions I ask. I have charts. Here are all the planets that you could be from. I go through until I find the ones that match. I ask about the gift, and I see this dial spinning in my head until it stops at one of the numbers. They're 1 through 8.
Mm.
Yours is a 5, which is it's just a random numbering thing, but yours is a 5. And yeah, it's just you learn how to do that.
Mm. Yeah.
And there's always a chance you could be wrong. So when I start my readings, I will ask the person, just give me 1 or 2 minutes about you. I want to read your energy. While they're doing that, I'm able to see if I got anything wrong because I
Mm.
can test what they're saying against what I found in their records and see if it's right.
So like when, I mean, obviously I don't stop talking, but did I feel like I was articulating myself but did you believe me when I was talking?
Yeah, but I didn't actually need you to do that because I've talked to you and I've watched you long enough. I already knew what you were.
Mm, I
It
see.
it comes if you know what the signs are and reading the energy, you can get it without even going into the records
I see.
because we all wear it outwardly. There are
Mm,
certain characteristics, ways of being that you can just tell if you know what they are.
mm,
And for me, it's about teaching people that this empowerment is out there for you. If you
mm.
don't know about it, you can't avail yourself. But like for you, you knew these things about yourself, but you didn't know them in a conscious way so that you could use them where you chose to use them. That makes all the difference.
Right. Yeah. Awesome. 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 Yeah. I really appreciate the time you put into this.
Yeah, my pleasure. It's like this is exciting to me to share this.
Mm.
It's another little wind up car. You turn it loose and let them go, right?
Yeah. Really cool, huh? Well,
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're getting something out of it as well. It means a lot.
Yeah, it's what lights me up.